Have you ever stopped to wonder how a massive country like India plans its money for a whole year? Well, that's where something called the Union Budget comes in. Now, I know it might sound like some super dense, boring financial document, but it's actually the master plan that decides pretty much everything, from the price of your next phone to that new highway being built a few towns over. You can think of it as India's financial roadmap for the entire year.
But before we get into all the serious numbers and policies, let me ask you a question. Why would the creation of this incredibly important document kick off with making a dessert? Seriously, a sweet dish. It sounds a little strange, right? But trust me, it's a huge part of a very old and very secret tradition. Okay, so let's dive into this whole secrecy thing. To really get what the budget is all about, you first have to understand the incredible lengths they go to protect it. This isn't just any old government report. It's one of the most tightly guarded documents in the entire country. And it all begins with the Hala ceremony. You know, in Indian culture, making something sweet is all about marking a special occasion or a new beginning. In this case, the finance minister literally serves halwa to the staff. It's partly a gesture of thanks for all their hard work, but it's also kind of like a farewell, because it signals the start of the final, most intense phase of making the budget.
This next part is called the lock-in, and it is intense. For about a week or 10 days, the officials who are finalizing the budget are completely cut off from the outside world. I mean, imagine being locked in a building with no phone, no internet, no contact with your family. That's exactly what they go through. And this extreme measure is all to make absolutely sure that no sensitive financial information leaks out before it's officially presented to the nation. So, after all that secrecy, the big day finally arrives. The finance minister walks into Parliament, ready to reveal the country's financial plan to everyone. But what exactly are they presenting, and how does a speech actually become the law of the land?
All right, here's a great bit of trivia for you. The word budget isn't actually mentioned anywhere in the Constitution. Nope. Officially, under Article 112, it's called the Annual Financial Statement, or AFS. At its heart, it's basically a giant account book for the country. It shows all the money the government expects to get and exactly where it plans to spend that money in the coming financial year. You know, giving the speech is one thing, but turning it into law is a whole other journey. It happens in a few key stages. First up, the finance minister presents the budget. Then, Parliament holds a big debate on the overall plan. After that, special committees dig into every single detail. Next, the Lok Sabha votes to approve the money for different ministries. And finally, two super important bills get passed. The appropriation bill, which is basically like getting permission to use the country's ATM card, and the finance bill, which makes all the new tax rules official. Now, the budget isn't just a yearly chore. Over the years, some budgets have been genuine history-making turning points. They haven't just managed the economy for a year, they've completely transformed it. Let's take a look at a few of these absolute game changers.
Just think about this timeline. We go from the very first budget in 1947, which laid the financial groundwork for a brand new nation, to the monumental 1991 budget that really opened up our economy to the world. And more recently, you have the 2017 budget, which brought in GST, and the 2020 budget, which is famous for the longest budget speech ever and for introducing big changes to how we pay income tax. Each of these moments really defined an era for India.
Can you just imagine the weight of that very first moment? When India's first finance minister, R.K. Shanmugam Chetty, stood up to speak, his words perfectly captured the birth of a nation's economic journey. You can just feel the history in that single sentence. But if there's one budget that pretty much every expert calls a total game changer, it has to be the one from 1991. India was facing a massive economic crisis, and the finance minister at the time, Manmohan Singh, introduced a budget that just tore up the old rulebook and opened India to the world. That single event set the stage for decades of economic growth that followed.
Okay, so we've covered the history, the secrecy, the process, but let's bring it right back home. How does this massive national plan actually impact your day-to-day life, your studies, and your family's wallet?
Right, this is where it gets really personal, because the decisions made in the budget, they directly influence everything from the taxes your parents pay, to the cost of a new laptop, to the quality of the roads you travel on every single day. It really truly affects every single one of us.
Let's just take income tax as an example. Right now, your family basically has two choices. There's the old regime, which is good for people who have lots of investments and expenses that they can claim as deductions. And then there's the new regime. This one's much simpler, it has lower tax rates, but you can't claim any deductions. It's now the default choice, and it was designed to make filing taxes a whole lot easier for most people.
So, after all that tax is collected, where does the money actually go? Well, a huge chunk is spent on national security and defense. Another really big piece goes into literally building India. We're talking new highways, railways, and airports. And of course, a very significant portion is invested right back into our well-being through health and education, and in direct support to citizens through things like subsidies.
And this brings us to the final, and honestly, the most important idea of all. The budget isn't just about managing today's money, it's a powerful tool for actually building the future that we all want to live in.
You'll hear this number thrown around a lot these days, $5 trillion. That's one of the big targets, making India a $5 trillion economy. It's a huge, ambitious goal, right? And the budget is basically the yearly action plan that lays out how we're going to get there, step by step, investment by investment.
And that huge number, it all feeds into this even bigger, grander vision, Viksit Bharat 2047. The whole idea is that by the time India celebrates its 100th year of independence, it should be a fully developed nation. Every single budget, every policy, every rupee spent is meant to be one more step towards that incredible goal.
So now that you've got the inside scoop on how it all works, let's end with a question for you. If you were the finance minister, if you had the power to write the budget, what would be your #1 priority? Would you pour money into new technology, education, healthcare, or maybe something else entirely? Think about it, because the choices we all make today will literally shape the India of tomorrow.